Hey guys, what's going on? John Haddock here from Think About Comics, and today I want to talk about Swamp Thing Absolute Edition, Volume 1 by Alan Moore. Guys, this is a must read. This is a must pick up. If you own it on paperback, that's fine, you're excused, but if you've never read this book before and you don't have it on file, guys, gotta get this for your library. The slipcover itself is just badass when you really look at it. It's got this great front shot. You know, you see Swamp Thing's face. It tells you what it's all about. The back, you know, it's got this cool shot-up face of just, you know, him being rooted. It's a badass slipcover. The detail on this is incredible. And that's one thing with this book. They took so much detail and they're making it feel just as Swamp Thing as they could. And it shows because the stories that you're going to be reading, if you do pick this book up, there's so much detail in them. The art is just fantastic, and it reflects the story in a way that a lot of books today don't even do. And this book came out in the mid-'80s. So this book's, you know, it's got some age to it, and a lot of books today from Marvel, DC, don't even come close to what this is. When you open this, when you get this book out of the slipcover, it's got a different feel to it. It's got this grassy velvet feel to it it just makes it feel more, you know, Swamp Thing, more, you know, grassy, earthish, that this character just, you know, that's what he's all about. He's Swamp Thing, you know, he's a walking being of grass. The stories in this book are fantastic. You got a great gothic horror elements. You have a retelling of Swamp Thing's origin story. I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't read, because trust me, guys, this is one of those books. When I sat down and started reading it, I could not put it down. It captured my mind, captured my imagination, and it's something that I would recommend to anybody, even if you really ain't into comic books, to check this book out. It's fantastic. The art reflects that gothic horror that to a point to where it meshes all into one. It doesn't feel like a comic book. It feels just like a rolling movie. And the panels flow so cool. As an instance to that would be, or as an example to how these panels flow really well, is there's an instance where Swamp Thing, he's coming into this house and he's going to be picking up this body, and there's a mirror on the side. And as the panels flow, Swamp Thing is coming closer and closer to the mirror. And as he comes up, and the mirror's on the side, so it's not a primary focus in the panel. It's off to the side. He's getting bigger as he's coming up close to the mirror. It's just really, really cool. And it adds a super authentic feel to this book. I'm telling you guys, if you see this, you gotta pick it up. Now, this is an absolute book, so it's going to be a little bit different from your trade paperbacks when it comes to pricing. I believe this has a cover price of $100. You can probably find that a lot cheaper on the internet if you go to sites like, you know, cheapgraphicnovels.com, In Stock Trades, Amazon, eBay, whatever you go to get your comic books, they should definitely have this. One of the problems I will say when I was reading this, the top here, I don't know if you guys can see, this is already starting to come up. It happens with a lot of these, but really probably shouldn't happen on my first read. I did have to re-glue a lot of the books. The pages are starting to pull back from the spine. If you can see, whenever you read it, it pops up from the spine, which is normal. But right in these little areas between the binding and the actual spine, I had to re-glue it because it was already starting to fall apart. And but once I re-glued it, you know, with the super glue in that, it works fine. A lot of omnibuses and absolutes, you're going to have to do that, especially over time, and especially if you're not stretching them out and getting them, you know, getting that binding, you know, used to being worn. But let's just open it up. I'll show you guys some of the art, and this stuff is just great. Now, this being an absolute book, everything's blown up. It's going to be a lot bigger than your normal comic book. And what's great is usually whenever you see some of this stuff, sometimes, not usually, I guess, is there will be like a border here. But in this, the whole comic panel takes up the whole page. So it's not just, you know, the borders are going to be separating it from what you're actually reading. And this just, it flows really, really good, guys. This is something that it's not too big. It's also, you know, not too small. It makes you feel like you're reading an experience. One of the things I do hear complaints about from people is, you know, they redid the artwork, kind of like what they did with Neil Adams's Batman omnibus. I've never read this stuff before, this material before, so I went to my comic book shop, found a Swamp Thing trade, and kind of looked at it. There's a big difference between the two. Does it affect how you read this book and how it feels? In my opinion, absolutely not. I think when you're delivering a comic book in this kind of form and saying, hey, look, this is an absolute edition, this is your, HD remix, if you will, you got to change it up a bit. And for me, this change really does work. And it kind of adds to the book. It feels like you're reading, like I said earlier, the remastered version of this book. I know Volume 2 has been announced. It's supposed to come out in August. It's going to be a must-grab for me. This book is definitely a 10 out of 10. Content-wise, I had no problems with it. Couple minor, infractions with the glue and the cover being a little, it's starting to lift up. But I'm going to throw it back in the slipcase and get it. Hopefully, it will reform back to where it's supposed to be. But I can tell you already, I've already went back to this book and reread a couple of those issues because these stories crush anything that's on the open comic book market today, guys. If you want a really good read, you're new to Swamp Thing, if you've already read it and you don't currently own this stuff, guys, this is a must grab. That's really it for me with Swamp Thing, guys. I appreciate it. Hit me up in the comic book section. In the comment section. Let me know what you guys thought about this book. If you've previously read it, if you didn't like the ink, if you're not a big fan of the absolutes, let me know. I always like to hear what you guys think. I try to get back to you as fast as I can. Give a like, give a subscribe. We're always putting out videos. Appreciate it, guys. See ya.